reset, rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
Hey, Sean, congratulations, first of all. Can you tell us a little bit about the process, just from the point of, I guess, you finding out that Chuck Pagano was going to retire, and then the time period then that whether it was interviewing, the whole thing, and what you ultimately ended up pitching, I guess, to Matt Nagy to end up getting the promotion?
Yeah, well, it was it all kind of happened quickly in terms of Coach Chuck had decided to retire, and it's probably the week of our end of season evals and things like that, and he had made that known to Coach, and then we all found out. He sent us a text, and then soon after that, it was where Coach Nagy was going to go with the search, and he had talked to all the assistant coaches individually, and then kind of got a feel for all of us, and then scheduled some interviews with us virtually, and did the process out that way. So it was happened fast. It was efficient, I thought, and thorough from Coach's perspective, and I felt the same as well through my interview process with it, and obviously blessed to have the opportunity.
Colleen Kane.
Hey, Sean, obviously you've been with the Bears for a while now. I'm just curious, how do you feel like you've grown under each coach and coordinator, and kind of specifically, how did working under Vic Fangio shape you?
Yeah, you're right. This is my 9th year now with the Bears, 3 head coaches, 3 coordinators. And part of that growth process is really just learning in every role that I've been assigned to. And the good thing about the roles I've been assigned to is all those coaches and coordinators have given me different spots and different areas of responsibility. So I was able to really get a good picture of the defense and how to build a defense and the expectations and things like that. And that starts all the way from Mel Tucker, it was the first coordinator I was here. And then with Vic for a big bulk of my time in the NFL was with Vic, and then Coach Chuck. And with Vic specifically, I mean, he's to his credit, and you guys know this, he's one of the smartest football minds I've been around. And for me to be in a role where I can assist him and really learn from him directly was really fortunate. When you're a young coach and you've done some things, like I was a special teams coordinator all in college. I've coached on offense. I've coached on defense. And when you're a position coach, your primary job is to coach your position and learn your position and be great at it. And then when you get a chance to take a step back, for example, for me, to be a quality control in the NFL was a great opportunity, but to take a step back and learn it and learn the whole defense from the guy that's installing it, responsible for it, whether it was Mel, Vic, or Chuck, you have a different view on the hows and whys of things. And I really tried to take advantage of that in those roles. And so from Vic, he was great to serve as a mentor, and he was very patient with my questions and taught me a lot about how and why the things he was wanting to do would happen and take place. And I was really lucky to have that.
Dan Wiederer.
Hey, Sean, you're obviously aware of the statistical regression in sacks and takeaways over the last 2 seasons. I'm curious, as you look at this from a coordinator's vantage point now, how you believe you can sort of get those statistical categories jump-started again.
Yeah. I think we're going to continue to have a huge emphasis on that. And there'll be some strategies and things like that we do from a meeting and practice standpoint to really emphasize that, really get our players to embrace that. And then, I mean, the other end of that is to execute when it's certain guys' chances to go make some plays. They're going to know when they can go take those shots and have those opportunities. And then it's going to be my job as a play caller to make sure they got those opportunities. And I think we're going to be able to try to do that and really optimize all of our players' abilities. We got a lot of talent on this defense. And it's the ability to optimize it. And then ultimately, a lot of times sacks come as a result of coverage and takeaways come as a result of pressure. So it's going to be all of us working together and buying into that concept and understanding our roles within the defense.
Adam Johns.
Hey, Sean, congratulations. I wanted to ask you about just how this defense has been built. You've been here since, well, Mel Tucker and Mark Trestman, just the personnel changes and how what you look for as a coach has changed in these players as this defense has changed personnel wise, and what messages or what you can convey to Ryan Pace as you try to take the next step of getting back to things here. Yeah,
I think that's a great question. And the biggest transition that we went through was going from that traditional 4-3 to a Vic system of a 3-4 defense. And it took us a couple of years to get the personnel the way we wanted it. And I think we're at it and close to it. And then there'll be some adjustments, and there's always changes year in and year out in this league. And we're going to continue to harp on the type of brand of player that we want. And we're going to be physical. We're going to be tough. And we're going to value speed and those things, and brains and smarts. So all of those things I think are going to be important as we evaluate guys. And we're going to find the roles that fit these guys' skill set. I think that's really important. That's the thing that I learned from all those coordinators. And I think Vic was really masterful at that, making sure guys were in positions that suited them. And so we're going to continue that emphasis as well.
Jason Leisure.
Sean, what do you think of the overall work ahead for you after a defensive season that I don't think anyone there was satisfied with? You have some personnel movement that you're going to have to deal with. Do you look at this as a big overhaul coming for the Bears defense?
I don't think so. And obviously we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of the personnel details and everything like that, but I don't think so. I mean, I think we got a lot of tools in place here. We got a lot of guys that want to be here, a lot of guys that want to play defense here. And I think this is an attractive destination for anybody that wants to come play defense here, as long as the mindset's right in terms of being selfless and being physical and tough and disciplined and smart. You guys know better than anybody, Chicago's a great place to play defense.
Brad Biggs.
Hey, Sean, congrats on the promotion. I'm curious, what key philosophies that you learned under Vic do you want to emphasize this year?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And obviously you guys have asked it. Vic has been my biggest mentor in the NFL. But that doesn't mean there haven't been other mentors in the NFL as well, from the Mels and the Chucks and as coordinators, and then even position coaches. So I think the biggest thing I'll take from Vic is going to be my preparation and my approach to the game and the buy-in I'm going to get from the players and how to do that, teaching people the whys. But there's going to be things I'm going to take from Mel in terms of the organization and the detail and the planning, and Chuck in terms of the relationships and his ability to communicate. So all those things, this is going to be a big, for me, my career has been really defined by learning from a lot of different people and then applying it to my own philosophies and beliefs. And I think that's one of the reasons why Coach had promoted me. I think he saw that, and we're going to have a clear, distinct vision, and we're going to have an identity that obviously our players are going to know and embrace. But I think, hope everybody in Chicago is able to identify and embrace it without it being told. I think they're going to be able to relate to that identity.
Hub Arkush.
Hey, Sean, congratulations, man.
Thanks.
The Mike Pettin hire, it feels like a new position on your staff. Obviously a veteran guy with a ton of experience. How do you envision his role and you guys working together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had, I think Coach Monachino was a senior defensive assistant the last couple of years. And so we've had over the last couple of years, people in those roles. On offense, we've had Brad Childress is a senior offensive assistant in those roles as well. So we've had that role in the in the system here for quite some time. And for us, I think it's going to be a resource. I think Coach Pett's going to be able to help us on defense and help us on offenses from a big picture perspective. He's going to be able to bring in ideas, as our other coaches are going to be able to bring in ideas. This is going to be an open environment. And like I said, everybody's going to know who we are and what our identity is. And then if there's things that we can balance each other off of, then I'm all for that. And I think that's a great thing for me, as a first time defensive play caller, is to have some other perspectives. And I hope you guys feel that with the way the staff has been built. It's been very thoughtful in terms of the guys we brought on the staff. Everybody's had either coordinating or playing experience. Obviously, as you guys have articulated well, the two of my deficiencies: haven't played in the NFL or coordinated in the NFL. So we've been pretty intent on how we want to develop the staff and the mindset that we have from all of our staff members, and then the traits that I bring. I think I want balance to that. I think I bring a different set of traits from everybody as well, which will be positive.
Kevin Fishbane.
Hey, Sean, going off that, Mike Adams, what did you kind of like about him in the process, and what do you think he can bring to the secondary?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, the wealth of experience as a former player, as a player who's able to be resilient and endure through this league and survive and play at a high level. I think that firsthand experience is valuable. And that complements me, right? I mean, I was in that room and I was coaching it, and I did it from a different perspective. And so now he's going to be able to add his own perspective. And then I think he's going to be a great way to complement Deshae, as Deshae's the secondary coach in that room. And so we'll be able to develop Mike and kind of his biggest transition is going to be learning how to coach. But to his credit, he's been a coach on the field for most of his career. So the transition won't be too difficult for him. I mean, he might need to learn how to use Visio, but that's okay. We can teach him that.
Mark Potash.
Hey, Sean. Have you been given any indication or confirmation that Eddie Goldman will play in 2021? And second, another question, when you look at this defense, what specifically do you feel is deficient? What is the main deficiency you need to improve to improve the defense?
Yeah. So in regards to Eddie, I have not been given any confirmation, and quite honestly, I don't know when that process, or if I get that confirmation, how that works. I think our expectation and his, I think, is that he will want to play, because I know he misses it, and he wants to be back. But in terms of the deficiencies on the defense, like this to me now, and I want to make this clear too, is, and I'm not a big car guy, right? So my analogies may not be great, but this is like a tune-up. We're going to refine some things, and we're going to make sure our players are playing to their strengths on a consistent basis, and they're going to buy into the system and the whys and the hows of why we're doing certain things. But we've got a good defense. We've got really good players here, and we've got a really good defense. And I'm with you all in terms of the stats. Somebody asked earlier, there was some regression, and we're going to overcome that, but we're going to do it in a positive way, and we're going to do it where the players are going to be able to shine through that defense. So, I think we'll build some depth, and we'll continue with our tough physical mindset of play and do that over a 16 to 20 week season.
Thank you.
Pat Finley.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm curious with your assistants. You said it. You've been in the same building for 9 years. How do you go about finding assistant coaches from around football? I know some of the guys had obvious connections to you, but others didn't. Who do you lean on when making those decisions? And also, what did you think of some of the defensive assistants that you guys did have going to places whose head coaches had longer contracts, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, let me answer the last question first. Obviously, that's up to each individual coach on what they want to do with their career and move forward. There's obviously no bitterness or hard feelings. I mean, those were all really good coaches, and they had opportunities, and they thought those were best. And Coach Nagy afford them those opportunities, which I think is a great thing for a coach to do, because you don't see that oftentimes in this league, where sometimes people get blocked and all those kind of things. But in terms of how and where we create a list of coaches from, that's a career-long project, and it's an ongoing project. And like I said, I've been in a lot of roles where I've been able to learn from some really high-level leaders, in my opinion. And sometimes when you're not the position coach, or when you are the position coach, it's a little bit harder to be aware of that. And so I hadn't been, like at Temple University when I started as a young GA and even as a volunteer, I was able to learn from Al Golden and see a lot of the back ends of the group and how he did things and why he did things. And he was great enough to share that with me. And so I've had a list for a long time on people that either I've worked with, had seen work, have clinicked with, have, so many interactions happen in the coaching world where you build your reputation and all that. So I've had that list running for a long time. It's probably 4 or 5 deep at each position, as my opinion should be. And then when you get a chance to interview, you get enrolled like we did, we vet them and we interview them and you ask the questions, and then you get a feel for where the personality is going to fit with our current team. And that's what we did. And I think we did a thorough job with that.
Larry Mayer.
Hey, Sean, let me follow everyone and say congratulations
Thanks.
On the promotion. Wanted to ask you, you mentioned a few times about the identity on defense and the importance of establishing that and having everyone know what it is. How would you describe the ideal identity that you foresee for the Bears?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that's important to know is, well, one, we're not going to give you everything here in this session, but it's going to be something that's palpable. Whether you're watching the tape, whether you're watching it at home, or whether you're in the stadium. And things that you can feel are physicalness, you can feel toughness, you can feel discipline, you can feel a sense of swarming to the ball and finishing. Those are things that we're going to be able to hang our hats on from a coaching perspective, from a player perspective, and that's where it's going to start. And then when we get into scheme and things like that, we're going to have our identity. And then again, like I said, we're not going to talk about those things here, but you guys are astute enough to be able to identify that quickly. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because it's okay if you guys know, it's okay if other people know, but we're going to know what we're going to be and we're going to do. And we're going to do it at a high level.
Mark Grody.
Hey, Sean, congrats. As per Mike Pettin, is he considered like one of your assistants, or is he an overseer for the entire defense? What specifically is Mike Pettin's role with the defense?
So his title is senior defensive assistant. And so he, in terms of, it sounds like you're trying to ask for an organizational hierarchical chart.
Yeah, like are you his boss?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
No,
yeah.
So I'm the defensive coordinator. And if there's tasks and things that I need Coach Pettin to do and Mike to do, then he'll do them. From me, he'll do them from Coach, just like anybody else. But he'll be a defensive assistant with us.
Couple more for Coach. Sean Hammond.
Hey, Sean, congrats on the promotion. I wanted to ask you to take us back, to your coaching beginnings a little bit at Shelton High School and those early years in the college ranks. And you had so much success academically and could have gone so many directions with your professional life. Just what kept you coming back to coaching?
Yeah, I think I've said this before. So to me, coaching is a very distinguished or different and unique form of teaching. So I think my academic background has really brought me to teaching. I know I was pre-med and all that stuff, and I shifted over to Columbia and to get my master's in education and did that and got my doctorate in education. But this is a form of teaching at the highest level, and I get to do it at the highest level and do it on the grass and, in an interactive way. So I think that's what always brought me back to coaching. And then quite honestly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the support I had to do that, because it's risky. And I think that's part of what your question is why you continue to persist on that track. But obviously my parents, my brother, my wife, without her, we would certainly not be at the spot that we'd be at here in terms of the sacrifices that she's made, career-wise, family-wise, to help me move on in my profession, and my kids. I wouldn't be able to do it without them. They're a motivating factor. My son's going to be excited. My oldest going to be excited that I've mentioned him here in this press conference. So that's some juice that he's going to have. But I wouldn't be able to do it with them, without their support. Like an example would be going back to college. I don't know if I'd be able to go back to college, because my kids have this certain way of life and they're expecting me to be home at certain times and be present. And I'm trying to do that. So with their support, I think we've been able to do it. And then again, so it's clear that this support network for me runs deep. I come from a big family, a lot of cousins and a lot of friends that I consider cousins. And without all of them, I wouldn't be able to do this.
Last two, Adam Hogue.
Hey, Sean, you obviously know that the NFL is always a copycat league and there's trends and schemes and things like that. It sure seems like Vic's scheme is the hot thing on defense right now. And you see the rise of Brandon Staley touching both LA organizations. Seems like the Packers are trying to get in on this now too. Why do you think that this defense right now is so popular? And how do you stay ahead of the game, right? Because obviously offenses are going to adjust.
Yeah. The why of why I think the defense is popular is I think we've got answers. I think we've got answers. I think you've got tools. I think it emphasizes player productivity and really emphasizes a team defense. We're not looking for one guy to win all the time. We're going to have opportunities for a lot of guys to win in different situations. And I think that's a valuable thing. And I think we can put pressure on a quarterback and opposing offenses in different ways. And we're going to do that. And that pressure doesn't mean 5, 8, 6, 7-man rushes. It means mental pressure, it means physical pressure. And I think the defense allows us to do that. So I think that's a reason of why it's, like you said, hot. And let's not forget now, right? Like the defense has withstood the test of time, right? So it might be hot now, and that could just be guys like you guys are catching on to it. But the defense was good at San Francisco when he was doing it then. And it was good in New Orleans Saints when he was the outside linebacker coach back then. So that part of it, I think, it's proven through the test of time, and it's adjusted and it's been adaptable through all different kinds of offenses. And then in terms of growing and adapting, I think that's constant. I think that's something I pride myself on, understanding where the league is going from an offensive and defensive perspective. And the other benefit for me is I got a direct line of communication to Vic to see what he's calling a certain place. Not that he might give it to me, but at least I can ask.
Last one, Dan Wiederer.
Sean, you lived the joyride of 2018 when this was the best defense in the NFL. I'm curious, as it relates to your time alongside Vic, what you took away from his ability to impact the game with preparation during the week, and what you took away from his ability to call and adjust to a game during its unfolding.
Yeah, I think, well, what you said right there, I think, and I hate to answer it this way, but I think you answered it, that own question, in terms of the preparation that I was able to witness him do week in and week out. And the truth be told, I had a front row seat at him calling a game. We were both in the booth and he sat next to me, or I sat next to him, I should say. He got to choose where he wanted to sit. I was just put next to him. But I sat next to him. And so you were able to, I was able to reflect every game, within a game and after a game, of why certain things happen, certain situations, why he called that. Now, does that mean I'm going to do it the same way? No. Would he want me to do it the same way? No. Right? I mean, this is going to be Sean's decides defense. And the 2018 defense was the best defense in 2018. Right? And our goal is going to be the best defense in 2021. And I think that's what our players are going to embrace and understand. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to look in the rear view mirror in terms of what could have and should have been. We want to look forward and really embrace that as a challenge to be the best defense in the league next year. And I think we're going to have the tools and the players and the teaching and the coaching to do that.
It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Rouse. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Rouse. WCPT. WCPT.
This the coldest boys show. You were getting the hour from 6 p.m. to 7. Chillin' with Lauren Cox and the man Marvelous. Shout out to Mr. Rouse and the Italian style. You what sports is the only politic.
WCPT. WCPT. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Rouse. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Rouse.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. He said. He said, what happened, Devin? Devin Tingo, our producer? What happened there? There you go. Now you're cooking with gas. No. There you go. I got it, Devin. Don't worry about it. There you go. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some technical difficulties here at WCPT 820 AM in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago. And our great...
Right, because it's 50 below zero.
Yeah, it is 50 degrees below zero. In the great neighborhood of Jefferson Park. Ladies and gentlemen, this is another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. Let's get right to it. You love him. He's not over at Wrigley Field freezing his tuchus off in the bleachers there. No, he's not over there at guaranteed rate with the Chicago White Sox, your next World Series champion. He's not over there, of course not. He's not at Soldier Field digging out the... Remember they used to have the benches down in the ground?
Sure.
He's not over there digging out the trenches over there. Of course not, ladies and gentlemen. He's not at the United Center trying to outshoot Kobe White and Zach LaVine with three-point record-shooting performance. No, he's not doing that as well. He's not over there with Patrick Kane and the boys trying to maintain a productive start to this 2021 season, ladies and gentlemen. He's in the studios of WCPT. He's the one. He's the only. You love him. He's known as the Marvelous One. He's Dan Marvel. What's up, Marvel? How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, buddy.
Yeah, it's very, very cold out today. You know, it's interesting. We hear this opening song from Q. The Grammys are in 4 weeks on March 14th. I didn't see him listed for any awards. Has he been nominated?
Really? Really? Well, there may be some controversy. Of course, he's Q, this 17th letter.
Right.
And, you know what QAnon and all that stuff. So maybe there's a little bit of controversy going there. Quentin Demps, of course.
That could be.
A part of the program. He, along with the beautiful, lovely, talented, and outstanding Lauren Cox, are on...
hiatus.
Hiatus? I was going to say that, but typically I say they're on assignment. They're on assignment.
And you know what? 2 weeks from tomorrow is March 1st, and that's usually my most favorite month of the year. There is going to be an NCAA tournament, all in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
There will be no high school tournament. In fact, the high school teams are starting to play. Now, much like for the last year I've been doing Zoom meetings, I've discovered how to watch some high school games. I actually watched a couple Glenbrook North games over the weekend, which is the school nearby me that I go watch some games frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like they had several dozen people in the stands in the balcony.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, that's legal. Opposite the bench, way up in the balcony, they can do that. So I'm hopeful that I may get to see a live game before my year comes up on March 10th, which would be 1 year since I saw a live game, because it's too much for me to handle to not see a live game in all this time.
Yeah, I know. It is kind of tough, but I'm glad the high schoolers have an opportunity to get back out there. I saw the game as well, like you, also. So it was great to see them. Of course, they had their mask on, Marvelous.
Yeah, well, it's hard. It must be difficult.
It's got to be difficult. I'm sitting here doing a show, the fastest hour in sports conversation, nonetheless, and wearing a mask, and I understand why we have to do it, but it's difficult. So I can't even imagine running around the court wearing a mask.
Yeah, well, they're going to go for 6 weeks, and then after that, they're going to do 6 weeks of football, hopefully. And already New Cheer's down. They've canceled 5 games because they've had an outbreak of COVID at New Cheer. So
they're responsible parents over there, right?
Well, Can I tell you?
Yeah.
The school appears to be still open. We can ask Hugh about that since he works there. But
Yeah.
I know that they canceled 4 or 5 games already, and Highland Park also, and several other schools. So a lot of these schools won't make it through the 6 weeks, but I'm glad they tried.
Well, it's a shame on New Trier and the parents because, they came down with the case of COVID, but it's irresponsible as far as the parents are concerned because my understanding is that a lot of these students.
Super Bowl party.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting together, gathering, and of course they're obviously not wearing masks and practicing social distancing and. But they want to point the finger at the administration and the district and say, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" Where you're not even being responsible parents to take care of your kids. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they probably don't even know what's going on, honestly, but still bad on them.
But as soon as something goes wrong, they want to point the finger at someone else instead of themselves.
Exactly. It's much like the parties that aren't supervised by parents. They don't know what's going on a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, there was a story that happened a few years back. I can't remember if it was in Winnetka or Wilmette or whatever the case may be, where the lady was having a graduation party for her son from high school, and she called the cops. The family ordered kegs and everything. They called the neighboring cops and the local cops and say, "Hey, we're going to be having a party for our kid. Mm-hmm. We're going to be drinking, so we just want to let you know there are going to be a lot of cars in the street." They're telling the cops that they're going to have underage drinking at their home.
Yeah, well, they're just worried about getting a ticket in their cars.
Well, they got more than a ticket in the car. They got arrested. Are you kidding me? You remember that story?
Yeah.
It was a few years back, but it could have been in Northbrook. Yeah. But it's just ridiculous how naive and stupid and ignorant some of these parents are. Yeah. And then when something goes wrong, something goes bad, they want to point the finger at everyone except themselves.
And amen.
Unbelievable.
So today was Valentine's Day. How was your Valentine's Day?
You know what?
Jerry?
Mine was, I'll get into it real quick, but I want to say congratulations. You're talking about high school sports returning and basketball and football. We want to say congratulations to the first high school champion.
Oh, really?
In the state of Illinois.
Bass fishing?
You're close, man. Were you on the show when we had the bass fisher kids on from Buffalo Grove?
All I know is that the championship is where my son lives. It used to be in Carlisle, in Lake Carlisle.
Would you know who the champions are for 2021?
Go for it.
Whitney Young High School.
Okay.
And, of course, the sport. Some may argue if it's a sport or not.
Cheerleading?
Chess.
Oh, chess. Okay.
They are the first winners in IHSA 2021 during the pandemic era to win a championship, a state championship. Whitney Young, their chess team. Congratulations to them, 2021
that makes up for the basketball championship they would have won.
Yeah. Well, we got a great show on tap. It's the fastest hour in sports conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, yours truly, Jerry Riles, along with the marvelous one, Dan Marvey. If you want to be a part of our program, our number here is 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. We're going to talk some Cub baseball. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk some White Sox baseball. Anything else in the world of sports you want to talk about, we're right here for you. We're going to be joined with Gordon Whitmire of NBC Sports Chicago coming up shortly to talk about the signing of a familiar face.
Right.
Jake Arrieta is back on the north side with the Chicago Cubs, signing a one-year deal. Was it $6 million?
Yeah, might as well bring him back. All they have left is Hendricks as a starting pitcher.
Yeah,
along with Davies.
But before we get into that, you asked me about Valentine's, and happy Valentine's Day to all of you out there. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you out there. Hopefully you were able to, spread some cheer, spread some joy, and spread some other things. Hey, take it easy. It's a family show. But hopefully you had an opportunity to enjoy the day despite the cold weather, despite the plummeting digits. It's ridiculous out there, but we want to say happy Valentine's to all of our listeners out there, all of you who support the Rewind Sports 60, and hope you're closing out the day, closing out the weekend on a very, very strong and powerful note. You can certainly, this is what they call cuddling weather. This is a real reason and a real excuse to do some cuddling tonight after that great, fabulous dinner. But how was your Valentine's Day?
Well, my Valentine's Day was great. You may remember on the air last week we talked to Michael Bonner, the chef at Serenello's.
The great Serenello's.
Italiano. So I was asking him about the brunch, and he talked all about it, and he talked me and convinced me to go today. So I was there when they opened at 10 o'clock, and He was very gracious. They had the lovely buffet with everybody got their gloves on, and the servers helped spoon everything out because you weren't supposed to touch. But later people were touching, but whatever. So and once it got to be
That's
11,
usually how it works out.
Once it got to be 11, you couldn't control the touching. I mean, seriously. But it was lovely, and we had a great time. And I wanted to reminisce. We were there every Sunday for weeks and weeks, and it was a nice reminiscence of being there. And the staff couldn't be more cordial. Natalie was our server, and Mike came over to say hello, and we had a great time.
Yeah, so Natalie took care of you. She's usually
she knows you.
Well, she knows you too.
Well, she's a neighbor.
She knows all of us.
Okay.
Yeah, but Sarah Nello's out there in Wheeling, right there on the intersection corner near Lake Cook Road and Milwaukee Avenue. Chef Michael Bonner, they do a fantastic job. The spread was all good. What did they have the carving station over there?
Yeah, they had the carving station. They had the omelets. They had the prime rib and turkey being carved, and that was lovely. And they had, the other fine items that come from Michael's kitchen, the eggs and the omelets. Besides which, they also had the scrambled eggs and the burritos, and the little chicken, and so much I can't even remember. And desserts.
What was the turnout like? What was that? I know it's limited.
At 11.
It's only 25% capacity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you what. They must have either they spread out the tables, or they 25%, I guess, because every table was pretty much filled when we left at 11:30. So they must have spread them out to comply with General Pritzker's rules. So.
Well, the numbers may have changed. I said 25%, but they could have gone up last week because the numbers are certainly going down as far as the state is concerned.
It was pretty full when we left.
No, that's very good. That's very good. I miss being over there. What was our section? Because we're normally on the south side of the bar area.
Over the carving station, and the bar looked shut down. There was nobody sitting in the section by the door that leads to the hotel, which was sealed shut. I don't know if you could even go into the hotel, but that section hadn't been occupied yet by the carving station. But everything else was pretty full, in the section where the seats are on the other side of the buffet.
Okay, sounds good. I'm glad you had an opportunity to get on over there. Sarah Nello's is a great establishment. Let us entertain you establishment. Again, Chef Michael Bonner and his team, they do an outstanding job, a fabulous job, and I'm glad that things are finally began to take a turn for the better as far as the fact that we can,
They had tremendous carry out too. I got there so early, I was parked in front, and I could hardly back out because they had lines for carry out, if you remember the layout.
Yes, of course I remember the layout. Are you kidding me? Actually I haven't been in the line over there because I just usually walk in.
If you get a parking space right in front, which I've never done before because I got there right at 10, so I got one.
Yeah.
And then when I was ready to leave, everybody was asking me if I was leaving, of course.
Yeah.
And they were lined up for carry out, so they did a pretty good carry out business too.
So that's good. I hope everyone had an opportunity to get on over there, and it sounds like a lot of people turned out for the brunch. So that's fantastic, and of course they had a fantastic Valentine's Day meal for people as well. I guess you can go over there and dine in, or of course you can order out to take home if you don't want to deal with the brutal cold. But Sarah Nello's, Chef Michael Bonner, if you didn't get an opportunity to get over there this weekend at all, you can get there Monday through Friday. You certainly can get over there and get whatever you need, whether it's lunch, whether it's dinner, whether it's brunch, or whatever the case may be. And they have the new pizza joint as well. Yeah. So the only thing I don't like about the pizza deal, and it's kind of minor. Well, I'm not going to say that because it might. I don't want to screw up what Chef's got going on over there. But the pizza is fantastic in its own right. So people, get on over there. Sarah Nello's in Wheeling, right there on the corner of Lake Cook Road and Milwaukee Avenue. And I know that this guy on our TR60 hotline, he certainly could enjoy a nice pizza too, no question about it. And I'm sure he'd love to have some pizza over at Wrigley Field, the friendly confines, if we, hopefully get back to some sort of normalcy. Ladies and gentlemen, he's on our TR60 hotline. He's a friend of the program. We love this guy. Happy New Year, Gordon Wittenmeyer. How are you? NBC Sports Chicago Cub Insider. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing so well. I actually had pizza today.
No, was it from Sarah Nello's?
It was not. Okay. I got to do that.
Okay. No, that's good. Okay. So wait a minute. Did you have pizza for Valentine's Day? Was that your meal?
It was my lunch. Yeah.
Okay.
It was,
Okay.
leftover pizza.
No, hey, that's the best, man. That is the best. And I think it's a guy thing, Marvelous and Gordon. I think it's a guy thing as far as eating day-old pizza, especially if it's cold or if it's been sitting on the floor.
Oh man.
It's the best. You can't go wrong. But women don't understand that for some reason. They don't.
I don't get it. Well, it's more pizza for me.
Yeah, but I don't understand. It's like, this is the best. And my wife, just look at me. My daughters, they look at me like I'm losing my mind. Like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, are you kidding me? And here's the good thing: when you get the end of the pizza, the crust part of it, and you can wash it down with a nice ice cold Pabst Blue Ribbon, it's the best. Are you kidding me?
Oh my God. Especially in the summertime. Oh man.
Oh my goodness, man. Oh man. Gordon, hey, listen, the reason we appreciate you taking some time out on this Valentine's Day day and of course weekend, but the reason we're reaching out to you is, of course, we're just a couple of weeks away from spring training. The Cubs ready to get assignment, and of course the White Sox, but the big news as far as this week is concerned, there's a familiar face returning to the friendly confines, and that, of course, Cy Young winner, World Series champion, Jake Arrieta has signed a one-year deal to pitch, to return to the north side, my good friend. Catch us up to speed.
Yeah, it was. We knew that they were talking to him among some other pitchers that they trying to add some depth here right at the end, and among the guys they were talking to, this was somebody I thought was going to be the best fit. And look, they're playing in a bad division, right? And the Cardinals probably became the favorites when they went out and picked up Nolan Arenado. And the Cubs had already done a bunch of salary slashing. They got rid of Yu Darvish. They non-tendered Kyle Schwarber. They replaced him with Jock Peterson. Really hadn't done much at all with their pitching staff except add depth pieces. And so to go get Jake Arrieta, if he's healthy, and he's on a one-year deal, so it's not like you're not expecting great things for a long time out of him, and he finished the season healthy last year except for a hamstring, so there's no reason to think he won't come into camp healthy this year. If you get 1 year out of him, 25, 30 starts even, he's not going to be what he was in 2015 when he won a Cy Young Award, but what that does to lengthen out the rotation, I think actually gives these guys a chance in this bad division. And if he finishes strong, you've got Kyle Hendricks and Zach Davies is certainly capable of putting together a good year. And if you get anything out of anybody else, you might even have a playoff rotation that can steal a series in the postseason. Now, a lot of things have to go right for any of that to happen.
Yeah.
But it gives them a chance, So
yeah.
I like it.
Go ahead.
And I like it. One of the things I like about Arrieta, as much as anything else, is this guy has more confidence, more swagger than almost anybody I've ever covered. And so whatever he had, he's going to bring it. He's going to bring it with full confidence that he's going to win every time he's out there on the mound. He's still got stuff. He doesn't have the same velocity. If he's healthy, he can certainly move the ball and change speeds. He knows how to pitch. He's a veteran. I think he can be really competitive if he's healthy this year, and at the same time set a tone in that clubhouse with an edge in that clubhouse that we maybe haven't seen quite as much of in the last couple of years.
Interesting. We're on with the great Gordon Whitmire, NBC Sports Chicago Cubs insider on our TRS60 hotline on this Valentine's Day. Real quick, I got to ask you this question. It's something that popped into my mind. Theo Epstein, who's moved on from the Cubs organization, but back during that World Series run, and, there was speculations about Jake and, his performance enhancing, whatever the case may be. But Theo Epstein said, and I almost fell off my chair, he said that Jake Arrieta was the hardest working athlete in sports. He didn't say he was the hardest working, meaning his off season conditioning and training, his season preparation. He said that this guy was the hardest athlete, worked the hardest in sports, not baseball, but in sports. You had an opportunity to be around this guy, this team, this organization. Did you see that as being the case regarding Jake Arrieta and his work ethic?
Absolutely. Now, I can't speak for other sports. I can't, I can speak for what I've seen in baseball. for a number of years. I don't dispute that. I don't have any information that would dispute that. Everything I saw from this guy, I mean, he had his own, they fashioned his own Pilates room, even before the clubhouse renovations were complete. And he had his machines in there that he worked at every day. You know, all you got to know about how fit he kept himself was it the 2016, 2017 ESPN body issue. Like, he was the regional cover guy.
Right.
You know, if you talk to him, when people asked him, the few times it ever came up in actual conversation when somebody asked him about performance enhancing things. I mean, you know, we're talking about more than a decade after testing got its teeth in baseball, such as it is. You know, he said, you know, he obviously scoffed at it, but his response is, I eat vegetables. And you know, he's famous for the kale diet and the kale shakes, and in his Pilates routine, in addition to all the other weight work that he does and aerobic work that he does. So I don't have any reason to think that Theo's wrong. I mean, he's obviously taking it to another level. I don't know about other guys in basketball, football, soccer, for instance, but everything I've seen in baseball, I would put him at the top of the list for sure.
Hey, Gordon, this is Dan in the studio. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. You know, I don't know how Theo would know anything about the regimen of athletes in the other sports, but it's nice that he thinks that. Here, I have a couple things. Number one, isn't it true his injury was a hamstring this year, and the year before he had elbow surgery? Right. So will any of these injuries impact his ability to return to form?
Well, one thing to remember about the elbow injury is it was a bone spur, and that was a clean-out procedure just to shave off the bone spur and get it out of there. So that's not ligament. I mean, I guess technically it's structural, right, because it's the bone, but it's not really the integrity of the elbow.
Okay.
So he came back from that last year healthy and was actually pitching real well in September until that hamstring injury hit, and he missed the last 2 weeks because of the hammy. But all signs were that his arm was fine last year, and there's no reason to think that's still not the case. And you know, a hamstring is, you know, for whatever that's worth, you would assume he's fine from that, and he's, you know, by the time he gets this thing signed, he will have passed a physical, and I think he even did a workout for some teams. So he's certainly demonstrated his fitness to this point. So it's just a matter of, you know, you assume coming in he should be healthy, and it's just a matter of keeping that up. And he's, you know, I think he's turns 35 maybe next month. So there is that, you know. And one thing to keep in mind too, though, with this season, because last season was so short, even the veteran pitchers that have been workhorses in their careers aren't going to be asked to do as much in most cases, just because it's a lot to ask to ramp up from a 12-start season to a 32-start season. And so you're going to see a lot of tapering back of workloads and giving guys extra days off during the season. You're going to see de facto 6-man rotations for most teams this year, and I think you can safely assume the Cubs are among them. So he probably won't be asked to do quite as much either. So if between the workload maintenance and what he already does to keep himself in shape, and him coming in healthy, and this only being a 1-year contract, it could work out to be a best case scenario for the Cubs and him at this point in his career.
Hey, Gordon, is this a move that Jed Hoyer, who is taking over the helm as far as the shot caller for the Cub organization, is this a move for him, knowing that this is almost a complete rebuild situation for the Cubs, but it's still a way to attract the fan and let them know that we are still here every day during the regular season to play some competitive baseball? Because I truly believe he's trying to get his fingerprints on this thing and say, hey, you know what? The Theo Epstein era is over. There's a new sheriff in town, so to speak, and his name is Jed Hoyer, and I got to put my pieces in place to build my foundation to show that I know what I'm doing as far as this position is concerned, but I still want to attract people to come out to the ballpark to support us. Is that a move that Jake Arrieta, to bring him in, does for him?
Well, kind of, and I'll approach that from two different outlooks. One, Jed's not going to be the guy he's not going to worry so much about whether he's selling tickets or not. He's going to be worrying about whether he's building a roster that's good enough for what he wants to do this year and puts him in position to do what he wants for windows of time moving forward. So from his standpoint in that regard, Arrieta's another one-year contract out of a lot of one-year contracts. Remember, when he traded Darvish, he moved 3 years worth of salary commitments on the back end of that contract.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the big money guys on his roster right now, or even modest money guys on his contract on his roster right now, are one-year guys. This creates, if you give them the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe they can be competitive this year, at least within a bad division, okay, fine. So you got maybe an entertaining team, maybe a competitive team, but beyond that, you have massive flexibility potentially going forward into 2022, which is huge for the reasons of whatever the economics of the game might look like as we get to the other side of this pandemic, assuming we're close to the other side of this pandemic at that point, and that you have a new CBA coming up in 2022 and or a labor shutdown. So that flexibility becomes huge, massively important. So he's done that. He's put himself in a good position with his roster and his payroll structure moving forward. But just to a pure marketing standpoint, I did think the timing of this was interesting because Crane Kenny, the business operations president, was on the flagship radio station announcing a renewal of the radio rights,
right,
and announcing that spring training tickets were going to go on sale on Monday with 25% capacity at their spring training ballpark starting next month. And then, a couple hours later, news of the Arrieta agreement come out, and all of a sudden that fires up a certain base of the Cubs Nation. So I do think there's some interesting timing to it beyond any of Jed's motivations.
No, I mean they're smart and it's business, and Cub fans love their team. They'll hate their dogs and their family member over the Cubs. They'll love them to the end. So it's interesting how things work out.
Hey Gordon, this is Dan again. It's funny. 2 weeks from tomorrow is March 1st, and they're playing spring training that day already. Can you believe it?
I know, right? I mean, Tuesday pitchers and catchers report, Wednesday first workout, and first full squad like less than a week later. I mean, it's on us right now. Yeah. And it sure doesn't seem like it.
I know some people that are already becoming Washington Cubs fans with Schwarber and Lester there. But be that as may, I'm going to challenge you a little bit on the Cubs division being bad. I mean, because it was a COVID year, and of course the Reds and Brewers, Cardinals all made the playoffs. But I thought the Reds were improving some, weren't they? And the Brewers aren't too bad. I think the Cubs might have more trouble than you're saying, maybe winning that division.
Well, they may well have more trouble, but it's going to say more about them if they do, because the Brewers lost a lot of guys and really haven't added much of anybody. They added Fulton Wong, I believe. I'm trying to think of the pitching they lost. I know Ryan Braun's gone, and a handful of veteran hitters with him are gone. You look at the Reds, they dumped their closer in a trade and then lost the Cy Young Award winner to free agency and have not backfilled any of that.
I gotcha.
So they're taking a massive step back because remember last year they were ramping up to go all in on 2020 before the pandemic hit. So they're going to be in some ways right back where they started, not have a whole lot of depth. Pirates have taken massive steps backward from an already terrible team, and the Cardinals for the big Arenado splash, which I think is significant because their lineup was their biggest issue. They still have potentially some pitching depth issues. They're not world beaters. So I still think when you look at what other teams around baseball have done and what good teams already exist in other divisions, it's clearly, I think, on paper, and we got to wait and see how it plays out, but on paper, it seems clearly the worst division in baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, top to bottom. I mean, there's not a team, there's not one team in that division that plays out on paper like a legitimate threat to win the World Series, or I would argue even the NL pennant.
Gordon, there's so much that I'd love to pick your brain on because there's so much information out there regarding Major League Baseball, but it is the fastest hour in sports conversation. We're on with Gordon Whitmire, NBC Sports Chicago Cub Insider, joining us for a few minutes on the Rewind Sports 60 WCPT 820 AM. What's going on with Chris Bryant? There's been news. He had a report, I think, on a podcast a couple weeks ago that kind of took off and blew up, where he made mention in jest, I believe, that he said he's not having as much fun playing the game of baseball compared to when he first, entered into the league. And we know what he was accomplished and what he was able to do. And it just kind of like blew up. And then the latest I heard is that the Mets had some interest in him. What's the latest with Chris Bryant?
Well, first of all, I don't think what he said was in jest. I do think it was overblown, though, because I think he was talking in a very specific way. How some of the adversity that he's gone through on the field, some of the nagging injuries he's played through, and some of the injuries that have kept him sidelined. It hasn't been as fun. And then there's been some, I guess, blowback on his performance among the fans and even some in the media, sort of questioning whether he's the same player he was. And I know that there was the 2018-19 offseason really bothered him. That was when he came off that shoulder injury that kept him out for about 2 months. He came back after that, and he said that he just gave up on looking at his social media because he was going down too many rabbit holes, and it was really bothering him. And he's, the one thing about Chris Bryant is I've never seen a different personality out of him. He's pretty genuine. He seems to be a pretty nice guy and a pretty thoughtful guy. And I do think that he tries to answer a question if you ask him, and I do think he tries to be honest about it. And I think that for the first time in his career, right, he was struggling and had some issues, and he was getting some this negative feedback from some people out there on social media, and it bothered him a lot. And he had a bounce back season in 2019, and then he had all kinds of issues in 2020. And meanwhile, that's about when all the trade rumors began, and then people piled on because of that. Oh, yeah, you and Boris, and you don't want to sign in Chicago. You don't love the fans like you say you do, and you turn down money, blah, blah, blah. And there's grains of truth to that, and there's stuff that's been hyped and overblown, and the people have gotten flat wrong, too, along the way. And I think he just feels like when he says, I'm not having as much fun, I think that's where sort of the business and the public aspect of it all comes in. So I think that's what he meant, and he's since kind of clarified that a little bit, and I think, and I've talked to some people that are close to him who kind of back that thought up. As far as the trade rumors go, they're real. I think if the Cubs were to get something of value for him in an offer, they would take it. I think the Mets are the best fit out there because the Mets are willing to spend, and there have been a couple of their targets, most notably Trevor Bauer, who got about $40 million a year from the Dodgers on a short-term deal that they fell short on. And supposedly, I think they had more years on the table, so they were willing to pay quite a bit of money for a pitcher that they wound up not getting. They've got money in their wallets that they're willing to use on players still, and they have a general need area that Bryant could really make them a lot better in, and so there's a fit there. And with a team that's willing to spend, they might also be willing to give up a little more in trade value to get him. And that's, from the Cubs standpoint, that's what it'll take. Somebody that'll either take all the money and give him some value, or most of that money and give him really good value in return, and that'll make it happen. I still think, at the end of the day, it's a long shot, especially as we get to this point, that happens. But I wouldn't be surprised if the right phone call with the right player involved in an offer happens all of a sudden and something gets done either.
And looking to the season, though, do they have some other issues like finding some outfielders and a second baseman, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think they're okay that way. Now they got Jock Peterson, and they say they're going to allow him a chance to play every day. We'll see how that goes. They've got Phillip Ervin from the right side who can platoon a little bit, play against a tough lefty. If they're going to give Peterson a day off, they've got that. They've got a couple of infielders who can play some outfielder, and as long as they keep Chris Bryant, he can play as much as they need out there. So their outfield's okay, and I think between, in particular, Nico Horner, but also Elmar Vargas and David Bodie, I think they've got second base covered. Second base isn't a position I ordinarily worry about anyway. If you've got depth in other areas, you can. There's a lot of ways you can cover second base, kind of like you can cover left field. So I think they're okay that way. And the fact that really from their regular lineup, they've only lost Schwarber, and then they've added Peterson. Basically, look, whatever you may have thought about that lineup last year and the year before, and all the criticism that even the front office applied to that lineup and how it needed to change and get better, all that's still in play. But a lot of those guys are all-stars. A lot of them now are in the final years of their contracts, and guys tend to perform pretty well a lot of times in those walk years. So it's still a pretty good lineup. And you know what? You could stack it up against the Cardinals, who probably have the other decent lineup in the division. And, position to position to position, the way it stands right now, you probably favor the Cubs.
Yeah. I also lost Almora, so the center fielder they lost too.
Yeah, but he wasn't even on their roster by the end of the year. He was basically out of the picture by the time the season ended last year. So it's too bad that he's a really good glove out there. He didn't really provide much at the plate the last few years. I don't know how big a loss that's going to be. Defensively maybe, but I wouldn't be overly concerned about that.
No, you're not overly concerned about that, but personally, he was one of my favorite players. He's like my favorite player because I loved his defensive efforts out there in center field and what he was able to do. But do you think his subpar performance or mediocre performance at the plate had something to do with the lack or the fact that there's no consistency? There was too much inconsistency because most players, and I never understood this with Joe Madden as far as musical chairs on the diamond. When you get to that level, players want to know where they're going to be playing every single day because it's their home. And when you are guessing every day if you're going to be in the lineup, where you're going to be playing in the lineup, all of this stuff, do you think that affected Albert Almora Jr., his focus and concentration, because he just wasn't a consistent day-to-day ball player?
It might have, and look, I like Albert too. I mean, I personally like him. When he was a young player, right after he got drafted, I went down to Miami. I went to his home, spoke with his parents, and just great people. I love the Almoras, and I love him. But honestly, we saw what happened in Houston a couple of years ago, and he was really impacted when that little girl got hit with the foul ball.
Right.
Not his fault at all. Obviously, he was really hurt. So I don't know if I don't know what the word is. I mean, you can't. There's nothing to hold against him. Obviously, it's such a caring, compassionate person that would feel that deeply about something like that. But maybe some things do get to him. And when it comes to getting to a place where you need to force all that out of your head to focus on getting through some struggles on the field, whether that's not playing every day or whatever, other distractions, it's possible. So I'll give you that. But I'll also say this. It's at the end of the day, at that level, and you're a professional, it's on you. He's not unique. The playing time was not a unique situation to him. And by the way, in 2017 or 18, 27, I can't remember which year it was. Remember when the first half of the year, he was hitting about 300? And he was getting increasing playing time. And the whole time, people kept asking Madden, why don't you play him every day? Why don't you play him every day? Without noticing that he basically was playing every day. Madden was putting him in the lineup more and more and more and more often. But what happened was, over time that season, his performance declined because he got exposed to matchups that weren't as favorable.
Right.
And so that was part of why he didn't play a lot. And so you've got to be able to perform when you do get those opportunities. He did get an opportunity at one point, and his performance declined as he got more exposed to more pitchers with different kinds of stuff. So that happens. And I'll say one more thing on that. This idea of set lineups just simply doesn't exist in baseball anymore. There's a few guys that are always your 3-hitter because they're whoever, or always your 2-hitter because, whatever, you're Mike Trout or whatever. But lineups that get set is, I got my 4 infielders and my 3 outfielders and my catcher, and they're in there every day, and here's their order.
Right.
That just doesn't exist anymore. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. And some of it's the analytics of the game, analytics of rests and analytics of matchups and everything like that. So everybody in baseball is having to deal with that.
Yeah.
Guys just don't play 162 games anymore.
Yeah, no more Santo, Kessinger, Beckert, and
Yeah.
Banks. Huh?
Yeah, no.
Absolutely. And by the way, 1969 is Exhibit A.
Yeah.
1969 is Exhibit A for why not to do it.
Yeah. It's funny.
Those guys were beat up and tired down the stretch.
Right. So I assume Ian Happ is the center fielder now, by what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and Rossi has said that.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot of that last year too.
Because it was funny, a couple of years ago, he started in the minors at the beginning of the year, and
right.
So yeah.
Real quick before we let you go.
He's made some adjustments.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I got to ask you this regarding the world of sports, and I'm sure you heard about this in the NBA. Mark Cuban and the Dallas Mavericks had not played the national anthem, and someone brought it to the commissioner, Adam Silver's attention, and he reinforced it. Hey, you have to play the national anthem before the games. It's been a controversial issue for the past couple of years, or even longer than that, of course, with Colin Kaepernick. But my question to you, we see what the problem is, and Mark Cuban said he wanted to represent the players and, of course, the community and their feelings about the national anthem being played. And it brought to mind, 70 to 75% of the NBA, or 75%, maybe close to 80 of the NBA is African-American ball players. The NFL is 70 to 75% African-American ball players. But when you look at the sport of baseball, it's only 6% African-Americans playing the game at the highest level. But when you look at the other ethnic groups who are outside of the United States, whether they're coming from Puerto Rico or Cuba or whatever the case may be, and you look at the numbers, and I'm just asking. Do you think if someone stood up and said, hey, you know what? We shouldn't play the national anthem before baseball, and it's America's pastime. But what if somebody said, hey, you know what? Just cut out playing the national anthem at all major sporting events. What type of effect do you think that would have on the game of baseball?
If you're talking about would people stay away from it, would people boycott, people would still go to the games, I think.
Would they complain and bitch and moan?
Yeah, they'd complain and bitch and moan, yeah. But I'll tell you this, and you make a great, I think you were alluding to this, you got people, you got these people that play the game from all over the world. So who you're playing the national anthem for? It's not obviously for the players, it's not obviously for the team, it's for the fans. So then what's your purpose behind that? I'll tell you something, I don't think, I've thought for a long time, like decades, a long time, that they shouldn't have the national anthem at these games. Because, and this is long before Colin Kaepernick, I haven't stood for the national anthem at a game for over 15 years. And part of the reason for that, and it wasn't a conscious or conscientious decision initially. It was a decision that I made because I had work to do, and it was like, you're pandering. This is jingoistic pandering is what this is. Mm-hmm. It's marketing, basically. Mm-hmm. And historically, it has been about the military, right? The origins of it go back to the 1918 World Series at Wrigley Field, by the way. Mm-hmm. And it was spontaneous. It was a band, military band at a time of just having finished World War I. So there was something spontaneous about it. When the series shifted back to Boston, the Red Sox picked it up and basically manufactured it there. And then it became kind of hit or miss for a while. But by World War II, it was being played everywhere. Sure. And people don't even think about it. How many times do people stand up and they got one beer in one hand and they're talking to the person next to them, or they forget to take off their hat, but they stand up because they're supposed to? There's not any thought behind it. And it seems to me that where it's appropriate to honor the country, and by the way, to honor the military, with the anthem is not at a dumbass baseball game or a dumbass football game.
Well, who's not going to...
Honestly.
No, I agree with you.
Honestly. And so I had a PR guy kick my chair one time back years ago, like almost 20 years ago when I didn't stand up.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in his face and I said, look at these people around here. They're standing up without giving two thoughts to this. I'm giving some damn thought to this. I'm showing my damn American freedom, and I'm thinking about this. I've got family in the military. My sister still works for the VA. And by the way, you want to honor the military? Don't play the damn national anthem at a stupid ball game. Why don't you take care of soldiers when they get back from these battlefields? Because they're not getting taken care of.
Mm-mm.
You want to honor them that way. Don't honor them with a stupid, jingoistic, pandering anthem before the game. Now, that was always my position. And as it went forward, I took a conscientious position on that. And that was my position. And then when Kaepernick came along and took his stand by taking a knee, my position, in my mind, took on even greater depth. And so, for what it's worth, you asked me, I don't often go there. It's kind of my business, just like I think it's your business, but you asked me. Okay,
You know,
that's what I think.
and you know what? Let me say, Gordon, I appreciate you for that, and I respect you even more for expressing your thoughts and sharing your thoughts with us here, and of course our listening audience. I've always respected you and admired you from afar, so to speak, because you go right at it. Our motto here is real sports, real talk, just plain real. And you've always kept it real. And I love the fact that you would go toe-to-toe, especially with the Cub brass, about issues that affected their fan base. And there are a lot of times they didn't like you coming at them the way that you approached them, but it was questions and things that need to be asked and said so that the fan base could have a better understanding what was going on with their team. So even with your expressing your feelings and your thoughts behind the national anthem, I'm glad I asked the question, but I'm even more pleased that you answered so openly and candidly about your thoughts and feelings. So thank you so very much, sir.
You know who wouldn't like that decision? Wayne Messmer.
And I like Wayne, and I appreciate Wayne, but as great as he is at singing that anthem, I still don't stand.
Well, hey man, I got one more thing for you, and this is it's non-baseball related, but it has to do with the Chicago Bears and the great Walter Payton. We just recently, a few weeks back, we had the chairman of the Bears, Chicago Bears, on, George McCaskey, and we asked the question, should the Payton family be offered a 1% ownership of the Chicago Bears? Take a listen real quick. Do we have it here? Devin? I got the long version here.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with all of the reasons that Walter's bid for a team in St. Louis was not successful. I know that we supported it 100%. Walter was a member of our board of directors so that he could be prepared for that eventuality if it ever came about. I'm sorry that it didn't, but Walter's place in the hearts of Bears fans and in our family is solid. I remember my mom, after Walter passed away, said that she and my dad promised themselves after Brian Piccolo passed away that they wouldn't get too close to a player again because it was too painful when Brian passed, and they were able to keep that promise to themselves until Walter Payton came into their lives. He just had an irrepressible personality. Once he decided that he wanted to be in your life, there was no denying him.
Hey, Gordon, that was the chairman, George McCaskey, as I stated, regarding Walter Payton when he lost his bid to become a minority owner in the National Football League with the St. Louis Rams back in the 90s. We asked the question to George McCaskey, would the Bears consider a 1% ownership for the Bear family, the Payton family? That, of course, Brittany, Jared, and we even had Eddie Payton, Walter's brother, on. Your thoughts real quick on the idea of the Payton family having 1% ownership of the Chicago Bears.
Well, I don't know what all the background is on any conversations that have been had over the years or any promises that may have been made or not made. it'd be a wonderful gesture on the part of ownership, no question about it. But I'm not going to sit here and try to give away McCaskey's money.
No, of course not.
I mean, I
don't mean to put you in a tight squeeze, but I just think it's just a noble. I think growing up and watching Walter Payton and what he means to the city and what he means to the organization, of course, what he means to the league. To me, he earned. His family earned it because, and people say, well, is it the money, Jerry? What about the family of the kids? Would Jared and Brittany want to even be a part of it? And I say, you know what? If Walter had received the bid and the votes of ownership, they'd be working with the team anyway. And it's not like they're getting 50% ownership or 49% ownership. It's just 1% ownership. That's all. That's all.
I mean, if it's about restoring something that was in the works already, sure. I mean, if it's not, then honestly, it is obviously Walter Payton's at the top. I mean, at the list of significant people in franchise history, but. You could give 1% to him and 1% to Ditka and 1% to somebody else.
No, you can't give it to Ditka. Yeah, you can't give it to Ditka.
I'm just saying, but you understand what I'm saying. I mean,
I do.
Yeah, and so as great as Walter Payton is, and as much of a fabric of the franchise, part of the fabric of the franchise, as he and his family have been, I think that would be a wonderful gesture. It'd be awesome to see him do it, but to sit here and try to say that they should or shouldn't. I mean, I don't know whose place that is. It's certainly not my place.
Well, it's my place here on the Rewind Sports 60. That's why we're putting it out there. Hey, Gordon, thank you so very much, man. We appreciate you taking some time out on this Valentine's. Did you have any special dinner or anything plans for Valentine's Day?
Well, until this phone call, I was spending some time with my wife.
That's always good, brother. Hey, thank you again. We appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of the evening and stay warm, man.
You guys too. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, brother. Take care. Gordon Widmeyer of NBC Sports Chicago on our TRS60 hotline, the Cubs insider, talking Cub baseball.
Now, I think what you should do, I think you should get Ditka on again to talk about the national anthem.
We'll call him next week.
I believe he hung up on you the last time.
Yeah, he did. Well, yeah, he hung up, and you know what? And that's why I didn't like that about Dick. What are you gonna hang up for? I mean, he's cussing people out all throughout his career.
Yeah.
We ask him a question and he goes nuts. I don't understand it.
Yeah, about the Cubs, I'm not sure they have enough pitching. After all, they did lose Lester,
right,
and Quintana, and Darvish, and Chatwood. And the thing is, they lost Darvish, and now they don't have anything to show for giving up Eloy Jimenez and Dylan Cease.
Unbelievable.
I'm not sure that they can win that division personally.
Quintana, I mean, he was stepping out on a limb.
Yeah.
He said it's the weakest, division, and
I guess he backed it up. I didn't know the details about Milwaukee, Cincinnati, and St. Louis. I thought that they were still pretty competitive, but I'm sure he knows his stuff.
Yeah. You think? I mean, he's the best in the business. There's no question about it. If you got anything you want to close out on, let us know.
Well, I just wish everybody continues to stay warm, stay healthy, get vaccinated if you possibly can, because that's it's like a combination. I've heard of getting tickets for Hamilton and the Cubs World Series to nail getting the vaccine, the online aspect. But I think it's broadening a little bit. So I would encourage everybody out there to try to get it, because I'd like to see this thing end as soon as possible, one way or the other.
Well, we just heard some alarming news before we came on the air that what are we
another Ebola strain or something
in Africa?
Yeah, right. Well, and then of course we've got the other.
We got the South Africa
version of the COVID. And
we got the South Africa. We got the UK. What's the other one we got? Where's the other one from?
It changes every day.
It's unbelievable. It really is. But the unfortunate thing, Marvel, is people are having problems getting the vaccine because they can't find it.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that are not computer literate, like a friend of ours who used to be on the show that's trying to get the vaccine that I was encouraging to get it. So,
but people can't find it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they're trying to go to Walgreens, they're trying to go to CVS, they're trying to go wherever they can, and they simply can't find it. My buddy, he got his mom. He called the number, and he was able to get her signed up, but it's in Colorado.
Right.
That's the only way he was able to get his mom.
And then he has to quarantine for 2 weeks after he gets it.
Well, he's there for a while. So,
Okay,
but the point of the matter is the fact that people want to get the vaccination, but they can't find it.
Yeah.
They simply can't find it anywhere, and there's still issues with the black and brown community.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that Walgreens is amping up, their vaccinations.
Well, I thought there were a shortage of dosage.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So and the black and brown community, there's still skepticism out there. I mean, 13% of African Americans in the state of Illinois have received vaccinations. 18% of Latinx have received the vaccination, compared to, I believe, 72% of white folks here in this state have received the vaccination. So there's a big discrepancy
You're talking
there.
about the first dose.
Yeah.
Okay.
What? I just said there's a scarcity, so that they can't get the second one.
I know. I mean, I hope you get the first one and you're going to get the second one. That would be terrible.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's the fastest hour in sports conversation. Thank you for taking the time out to join us, to listen to some Cub baseball. White Sox fans, we apologize. We didn't get a chance to talk about the next World Series champions.
Well, they're going to have less problems, I think.
Oh, my God. There's going to be a fight at the bat rack.
Right.
And you heard that they've diminished they tweaked the baseball so that it travels, 30 feet less?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so there's not going to be as many home run balls out there. But, of course, over at the Guaranteed Rate Stadium, the ball will be jacked out. Okay. Marvelous. Thank you so very much. The fastest hour in sports conversation. Yours truly, Jerry Riles. Devin Tingle, our producer. Thank you so very much. Folks, have a great one. Stay warm. We'll talk to you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Relax, reset, rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
The Rewind Sports 60.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast with yours truly, Jerry Riles, and the Honorable Dr. Chad Padromas. Doctor, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jerry. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Here in the Chicagoland area, the temperatures are plummeting. We were in single digits, well, actually double digits, in the teens the past couple of days. This weekend, Valentine's Day weekend, we are plummeting down in the single digits and below. Oh my, I even hate to think about it, but under zero. Wind chill expected to be 30 to 50 degrees below zero with the wind chill factor, give or take here and there. So despite that, we're hanging in there and we're staying strong, and we're Chicago strong for sure, Doc.
Yeah, you know, we're down here in Florida. Seeing patients gave actually a lecture outside yesterday.
Wow.
And it's, you know, weather's nice, but hey, I think cold weather makes you tough, right? So I'll be back in a day or two.
Yeah, yeah. Don't rub it in being down there in Florida. I wish I was down there. They got the Daytona 500 this weekend, so that's a big monumental event taking place. Yeah, I mean, Florida is just a great place to be, and people are certainly getting out and enjoying themselves. But here, of course, in the Windy City and all across, I believe, somewhere between 20, 25 states. That northeast storm has just really hit the Northeast and the Midwest very, very hard. I believe on the New York area, they've had somewhere between 2 to 3 feet of snow. And again, we talked about the temperatures plummeting. And, of course, we love the city of Chicago because we say the summer, however long it is, from June to August, whatever the case may be, it's beautiful. But to appreciate it and to enjoy the weather here in Chicago or the city in Chicago, you have to be able to endure the cold and the snow. And many of us who've grown up and lived in this beautiful city of Chicago, we know exactly what that means. And that's one thing I wanted to touch base with you on and talk about with this podcast is that, we're in the meat of winter, and that's the mid-February. And, the temperatures are very, very challenging. And the snow, of course, you have to dig out from underneath it, which means, and of course, limited daylight time because of shorter days. But I wanted to ask you, Doctor, the mental state of people living, in the Midwest and in the East Coast, having to deal with winter. Your thoughts and your experience on how people can prevent the, getting depressed and the cabin fever and trying to battle through it and overcome it from a mental standpoint?
I think that the one overriding important thing to do is to exercise. Exercise does just a variety of things that are very good. It makes endorphins. It's good for your mental state. It builds telomeres, which help you live longer. It's just good for you on a number of fronts. And so I will tell you, when you talk about exercise, people talk about just being mobile, being active, walking around. That's true. However, I'm a big believer in, health permitting, of course, exercise that's a little more stressful. The fact is that you have to have overload to increase your exercise capacity. And, there's aerobic and anaerobic. And, when I was growing up, when they started talking about health benefits, it was all about aerobic, getting your heart rate up, which is extremely important. But we now know that anaerobic strength training is equally as important. So I tell all my patients, and I do this myself, that you should exercise 6 days a week. 3 days a week on alternating days, do something aerobic. 3 days a week on alternating days, do strength training. We actually, on our website, ismoc.net, there's a link that says the ISMOC workout. And there are 5 exercises you can do for your upper body. And this is meant to be a joint-friendly, a shoulder-friendly workout, actually. So there's videos, there's descriptions, and it's what I do myself. If you do these 5 exercises, 3 sets of each, 10 reps first set, 30 reps second set, 20 reps third set, takes 20 minutes, you'll be in great shape. And then something aerobic the other day. So I think exercise above all else. So to be clear, walking around, sure, but where are you going to walk in the winter, right? And I have a standing desk. I like that better than sitting. But I mean working out where you're huffing and puffing and straining and really working hard. Because if you don't overload, you don't get stronger. And the act of making new muscle tissue makes you healthier. The same is true for aerobic exercise. And, I'll get back to that in a minute. The corollary to that is diet. People tend to eat more when it's cold. We all tend to eat no matter what, right? But sometimes if you're feeling bad, eating is pleasurable, so people eat for pleasure. And I'll just tell you, I tell all my patients, and I do it myself, Everybody, I mean, as a society, we're putting on weight. We put on a lot of weight, right? So the one thing that I think you've got to do above all else, just weigh yourself every day. And maybe that seems offensive to people. I don't know. But, you know, you have to figure out what you want to weigh yourself every day, deny yourself food to the extent that you need to do it. Not just eat healthy. Eating healthy is great, but you just got to eat not that much. So here's the thing. The two things that make people sick and unhealthy and lacking energy are being overweight and being underexercised. So I think in the winter, it's true year round, but, you know, in a warm climate, Florida, people ride bikes year round, they take long walks. Well, you know, not happening in Chicago. And in fact, you know, you take long walks in Chicago, for older people in particular, they fall and break things. It's a cool climate, right? So I think you have to focus and work hard to exercise in a meaningful, sort of stressful way, 6 days a week. And I think you have to weigh yourself. And if you gain a pound today, tomorrow eat a lot less and lose it.
You know, that's great advice, Doctor. But for those of us who work out regularly, I think we understand you have to continue the process and maybe work, as you stated, a little bit more, a little bit harder because you're indoors and because you don't have the freedom to, you know, to get out and walk and do those sorts of things. But what about those individuals, Doc, who may not work out at all? And if they do work out, maybe it's to a bare minimum, but now they find themselves being that couch potato, you know, for instance, watching the Super Bowl last week, and congratulations to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on bringing on the trophy. That's an incredible story in its own right. But all the commercials, whether it's Doritos or whatever the case may be, the couch potato is sitting there and he's munching and he's jumping. And, you know, before you know it, you know, you talk about the freshman 15. I mean, you got the winner, you know, 15, 20 as well. How do you motivate those individuals to, you know, to get off the couch and do some sort of exercise to better themselves, you know, now and in the future?
So the answer is we as a society are not motivated, and we as a society are getting sicker and sicker because we're not motivated, and nobody has figured out a way to motivate people, unfortunately. And, you know, you brought up TV. I'll just tell you, so you actually burn less calories. Your metabolism is actually slower sitting and watching TV than sleeping. Isn't that interesting? So as far as I'm concerned, I think the worst thing you can do is watch TV. I think screens, I mean, watching TV, there's almost nothing worse. I mean, being on a screen to write something or do something useful is one thing. But it's bad for two reasons. Number one, you don't burn any calories. You're in this sort of vegetative state. Number two, you know, it's been shown, just as you said, when you're sitting watching TV, you want to eat. So it's a double whammy. So the best thing you can do as far as I'm concerned is just turn the thing off. Just don't watch it. Now, that's particularly tough because of the pandemic. People are inside. They have nothing else to do. But I will tell you, I can't think of anything less useful than watching TV in general. So, you know, read a book, play cards, anything, you know. But I think, you know, forcing yourself to exercise more, forcing yourself to always be kind of hungry, because if you're not always kind of hungry, you're just going to gain weight. But, you know, forcing yourself to not eat, forcing yourself to not watch TV, and forcing yourself to exercise, I think are the three most useful things that you could possibly do. And, you know, to get back to the exercise thing a little too, I mentioned anaerobic exercise, lifting weights. It's been found to be as health-giving as aerobic, but that aerobic, getting your heart rate up and, you know, really getting your heart rate up. So we talk to our patients about 15-minute workouts on an elliptical or a bike or whatever, where you get a heart rate monitor and you get your heart rate up high. Now, talk to your doctor, of course, but The general formula for aerobic exercise for maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. So if you're 50, your maximum heart rate is something like 170. And getting your heart rate up to 80% of 170 for a 50-year-old would be like 120 something. So getting it that high, or even much higher, getting your heart rate up where you're out of breath and you feel like you can't stand it, and if you don't do that, you don't really improve your aerobic capacity. And getting on an elliptical or a bike for 45 minutes and reading a book is not very different than taking a long walk. And it's much better than not doing it at all. But an entirely different physiologic effect from pushing yourself and getting your heart rate way up high and keeping it way up high, uncomfortably high. See, all of this stuff, you don't get useful workouts unless you're uncomfortable. You got to be straining to push weights. You got to be out of breath and feeling like you can't go on anymore aerobically, because our bodies are programmed for energy conservation. We're programmed for scarcity, right? We're not programmed for plenty. And so what's messing us up so much is, for the first time in the history of the world, in Western society, we have plenty. And we're just not genetically adapted to it. We're genetically adapted to going through long winters with no food, and how do you conserve energy? So that's what we do. And so when we're not in that situation, it's the reverse. And I mean, the triple whammy for TV, I mentioned the fact that your metabolism's lower, that you feel like eating. And then, as you said, all the commercials are for things to eat, Right. I mean, it just doesn't get any worse. So then you sit there and you eat all this high energy food, and our bodies are programmed to eat it. So you really have to get to a point where you look on food as sort of the enemy, because, and I understand there are people that are never hungry and they don't gain weight, but there aren't too many of those people around. Most of the rest of us, you've really gotta, you've really gotta work at it. So I think that particularly through the winter, when we're shut in, it's got to be kind of preoccupation. The payoff, it feels good. I mean, nothing makes you feel worse than being heavy. And part of the reason for that too is that if people that are heavy in general are sick. And I'd like to say, I'm not saying this is intentional, but our economy, I think, would collapse if people lost weight, because probably majority of the diseases that people get now, maybe not a majority, but an awful lot, are related to being heavy. So then when you're heavy, you get high blood pressure and diabetes. And I'm not telling you anything we haven't discussed before and that you don't know, but then you take medications. The medications have side effects, and you just can't get out from under it.
No, you're absolutely right. I don't know if the economy will collapse, because I think we have including yourself, we have some very bright, intelligent people behind, whether it's medicine or science, and I'm sure there will always be something there for the public to consume. So I always believe there's something out there, the carrot, leading the charge, and people chasing that carrot, regardless of whatever it is. Well, Doctor, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm actually serious about that. And I mentioned this before, that 80% at least of health outcomes have nothing to do with health care. Something like 70 to 80% are lifestyle, maybe 5 to 10% are environmental. So honestly, if people were not heavy, if people now were the way they were in the old movies that you see, and if people were active, they talk about a doctor shortage. I mean, I'm serious. We'd have a doctor surplus. Most of the medications we take, we wouldn't need. Most of the hospital beds, most of the healthcare system is devoted to treating problems that come from an improper lifestyle.
Right.
And and I'm old enough to remember when hardly anybody took medications. If you had some bad problem, that's fine. Even things like cancer. So you would say, well, cancer's always been there, right? But cancer, the incidence of cancer is hugely increased by obesity across the board, So everything. And it's just, it's just such a shame. And as you point out, in winters it's even worse. Something else that this begets is antidepressant drugs. So I'll tell you an interesting thing. So I did my internship at the University of Chicago in 1979. The U of C is on a quarter system. So they have a fall, winter, spring, summer quarter. The winter quarter, and I don't know exactly when it was, but like December, January, February, something like that, was called the suicide quarter, because they had suicides and they were clustered at that time of year. And I remember being on call, this great Gothic campus, and I'd be on call in this room, and we were chronically sleep deprived. It was pretty horrible. I mean, they wouldn't let us sleep, so we were falling asleep on our feet. It's terrible. They have laws now that they can't do that to people anymore. But anyway, so I'd be getting up I'd go to bed at 4, get up at 5, whatever. I'd be looking out the window, AM, and it was cold and it was gray, and they had these gargoyles out the window, and I was so tired I was practically hallucinatory, And man, I mean, people just felt horrible during that time. That just as you said, Jerry, and this thing is called seasonal affective disorder, acronym SAD, and the lack of light and decreased light. People get sicker. Autoimmune diseases are higher in the winter. A lot of that's probably vitamin D and light related. So it's an inherently unhealthy time of year. And your mental status is bad. And now there has been an absolute, opinion, out of control proliferation of medications for this, antidepressant drugs. And so those drugs cause an increase in suicidal ideation. So it's a black box warning on all these things for people under 25. There's a recent study out of Sweden that showed that not only does it make younger people think about it more, but more people were succeeding doing it, successful. It's kind of a horrible thing, suicide. And I'm sure it does that to adults as well. So these drugs now are prescribed like water. And and often the implication is that if you don't prescribe them, people will do something terrible. But the fact is, taking them makes people do something terrible, And there are an awful lot of crimes that are, I mean, I hate to even start talking about this stuff, but homicides, mass shootings, and those drugs are usually lurking in the background. Now, their proponents would say, well, these people have problems and that's why they're on them. But I will tell you that I'm not a fan. I think there are other ways to deal with problems. I think exercise is absolutely the best one. But the problem is, in our health system, talking to people like I'm talking on this podcast about exercising, and I do this in my office, but that sort of isn't happening in our health system. Our health system now is kind of mass production, quick visits. Maybe you don't see the doctor at all. And who was it? Dr. Phil had a nice piece where he was talking about mass production medicine, which we have, and said that it begets drug prescriptions because it's the quickest way to get people in and out of your office. And now that we're into health systems, not so much the doctor and the patient, but the system, that's beneficial. So these drugs get prescribed, and the right thing to do, I think, is to, and I don't want to paint with too broad a stroke, but let's just say avoid taking them if you can, and work instead on exercise. But if you give people a choice, and I say this as a physician, if you give people a choice between something that takes a lot of energy and a lot of discipline and a lot of willpower, like exercising rigorously versus taking a pill, what do you think is going to happen? Right. And that's kind of what has happened. But my point is, I think those drugs, in many cases, are part of the problem.
No, I understand, and I personally agree with you. I certainly do. I subscribe from your notebook. Let your body, do the work, because it's a incredible machine, and it knows what to do and how to protect you and take care of you, as opposed to some drugs. Right. Yeah.
Jerry, let me make another point too. If I could, it's about aerobic exercise that I didn't talk about. So aerobic exercise, to be useful, has to get your heart rate up. That's how you measure it. So how are you going to do that? Stationary bike, low resistance, high rate is a good thing. Elliptical trainer, I think, is a really good thing unless you've got joint problems. Running is fine, but running's hard on joints, and you're not running in Chicago much probably. So I would just say to you, Water is okay too, but you've got to be pretty aggressive with the water. So I would say for most people, stationary bike or elliptical, 15 minutes at a high rate that you build up to. I think it's very difficult in the winter to get a good aerobic workout if you're not doing one of those things. Other things that are out there that are great workouts are rowing machines and steppers. But rowing machines and steppers have a high incidence of causing back and knee problems. So, especially the steppers. So if you can do it and get your heart rate up and be fine, that's okay. But basically, stationary bike and elliptical, I think you should look to do one of those. Get a heart rate monitor so you can measure it and get your heart rate up and keep it up.
Yeah, a lot of people work with the those smart watches, those Apple watches. They have that to monitor their rates. They got their smartphone to monitor things. So there are devices out there for people to use to to monitor their activity during workout. Before moving forward, I do want to say, Doc, we want to reach out to people and let them know that if they have any thoughts or know of anyone who may be contemplating harming themselves in any manner, is there a number that you have with your practice that people can call if they have any thoughts of suicide or doing any harm to themselves, where they can reach out? But I know that there's 1-800 suicide hotlines as well. But so we want to make sure that people who are watching this or listening to this podcast, if they know of anyone or even themselves, that they can reach out. There's some help out there for them, especially during this time, during the winter months.
Very well said.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to bring up, there's so much you bring to mind when you talk about working out, whether it's, the people with the New Year's resolution that say, hey, January 1, I'm going to get out there and start working and lose this, what was a six-pack now turned into a keg around their midsection. But we learn and understand that those New Year's resolutions usually fall off within 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 weeks down the road. Any advice for those individuals who may be still at it? We're in the mid part of February, and there may be some people who are still sticking to their New Year's resolution. But any advice and any thoughts to those individuals who feel they may be on the brink of falling off?
Yeah, it's just redundant with what I said. Here's the basic thing. There's nothing even remotely close to being as important as keeping your weight down. Second would be exercise. And just bear in mind that if you get heavy, if you're sedentary, chances are you're going to have health problems. And if you get them, our health system isn't going to help you much. There's a new category with longevity tables called living sick. They talk about life expectancy, but they've got now a new category. So not only how long you live, but living healthy versus living sick.
Right.
And Americans live sick because our health system is so good that we keep people alive, but we do a terrible job, in my opinion, of keeping people alive healthy.
Right.
Because lifestyle is everything. And the problem is, everybody out there wants to help people, no question. But, things tend to follow economic incentives. And there's no economic incentive to anybody to spending a lot of time talking to people about lifestyle. So, but there's huge economic incentives to selling drugs, to selling medical services, to doing surgery, to doing procedures. Now, again, these are necessary. Good doctors, good medical people doing this. But as far as those resolutions go, I had a patient a long time ago who said, Doc, said God gives you the first 30 years, and after that, it's up to you. So, I would say if you want to feel good after 30, there's just simply nothing more important than keeping those resolutions and keeping your weight down and getting and doing vigorous exercise, whether you feel like it or not.
No, I agree with you, and I know there are some people out there that say, "Man, that that McDonald's cheeseburger, it's just calling my name," or that Popeye's chicken that's out there, it's just calling my name. But you got to have some sort of discipline, no question about it. Before we go on, I love the information that you're providing for our viewers and our listeners, Doc. You talked about water. One thing that I've incorporated in my diet over the past couple years was, but not consistently, substituting from, of course, I don't do the tap water, but bottled water or filtered water from the refrigerator, but to transition to the alkaline water. Is there any difference there? Can you explain? And if so, what are those differences between, the filtered water, tap water, and alkaline water?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there is. I do know I'm not a big fan of bottled water in plastic bottles because there are chemicals, and actually the plastic has hormone mimicking chemicals. Actually, there's a very interesting article recently just about COVID. They were finding that people with chemicals like that seem to do worse because they seem to collect in their lungs. So I think we drink filtered water. Chicago's got great water, actually. Some parts of the country where it tastes bad. I think the main thing is just to drink water. So, a couple of basic rules to not being heavy. One is don't ever drink soda. And don't, fruit juice is like soda. It's crazy fattening. Have fruit, don't have fruit juice. And then carbs, of course, carbs make you heavy. So avoiding carbs, fruits and vegetables, just drink water, like healthy water, alcohol water specifically, I don't know. I think the main thing is to drink water as opposed to drinking things other than water that carry empty calories.
And finally, I heard this report on a local station here in the Chicagoland area where researchers have found that drinking coffee helps reduce the risk of heart disease. But if you drink decaf coffee, it may increase the risk of heart disease. Have you heard any of those studies? And can you elaborate on the use of coffee, drinking, and caffeine?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about decaf coffee is that the chemicals that they use to decaffeinate the coffee, I think, are not benign. So I don't drink decaf coffee often just for that reason. As to your other point, what happens is there are all these associative stories that say, well, drinking coffee does this and it's good for you, and does this and it's bad for you. And the truth of the matter is, and I think people have kind of picked up on this from this point, is there are a lot of sort of non-significant associations. So there's a lot of, how shall I say, there's a lot of demand for health information in publications and articles and whatnot. And there isn't a big supply of things that are really meaningful. So I think, I look at these things. I don't look at them actually as much as I used to, because you can't, it becomes impossible to live your life based on these kinds of articles because they're contradictory. They're all over the map. They usually have kind of non-significant associations. And sometimes they turn out to be horribly wrong. We talked about this before, the whole carb thing when I was growing up. Fat's evil and carbs are good, and it's just not true. So what I'm saying is, I think there's an old Greek saying, forgive me, pan metron ariston, means moderation in all things, right?
Right.
So I think if you moderate what you eat, if you use common sense, and I'll tell you something else. This is kind of the opposite of what you may hear, but how much you eat, I think is far more important than what you eat. I mean, McDonald's hamburgers in a third world country are fantastic. Protein, calories, right?
Right.
So you can eat McDonald's hamburgers every day if you don't eat too many of them. So if you're not, see, our bodies are omnivores. Our bodies are geared to picking nutrients out of food. So if you just eat very little and less as you get older and you're not heavy, what you eat doesn't matter as much. there's people all over the world. You kind of look at this, like we're big on plant-based diets, and I do. I just eat lean meat and vegetables, but there are populations in the world, the Maasai in Africa, live on blood and milk. The Inuits up north live on blubber and meat, right? And they do fine. The key is, though, whatever you're eating, just don't eat very much of it.
Right. No, my good doctor, and he keeps.
And by the way, let me just add this.
Yes, sir.
Is there are just a few things out there, talking about food and coffee, there's just a few things out there that are really important, written in stone, that we know. The most important is what I said, just eating less of things. Just not being heavy, keeping your BMI below 25, for sure. The other thing, though, is processed food. There is no question that processed and smoked food do bad things, carcinogenic, everything else. So beyond that, whether you drink a little more coffee, a little less, whatever, I think that's kind of nibbling around the edges, pardon the allegory. But processed food is certainly bad.
No, you hit it right there. That's exactly right. And I hope that more people will learn more about their diets and get educated on that, and definitely continue to work and get the exercise in, and whatever they intake. I agree with you, and my doctor told me the same thing years ago. It's all in moderation, and as long as you take the necessary steps and approach to trying to better yourself overall, mentally and physically, I think longevity is a part of your life and your lifestyle, and you can live the ripe old age of who knows, whatever the case may be. But Doc, thank you so very much. If anyone wants to find out more information or get a hold of you, what are the digits? How do they find you?
So our phone number is 847-699-6810. We've got a great staff. We're always willing to help. And, Jerry, I know we're kind of done, but let me just add one other thing. You made a very important statement early on about how can you motivate people. What I would tell you is, if you've got an older family member kind of shut in, tell them, motivate them. You might be a young, healthy, athletic person, but talk to them, encourage them, tell them how important this is.
No, I agree. That's great advice, and we need to. It starts with one, and you continue to build by passing along the information. Dr. Caphadromas, thank you so very much. We look forward to seeing you during the weekend. Definitely look forward to the podcast every week. It's the Sports Medicine Update, the weekly podcast. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, and the Honorable Dr. Chad Fedorowicz. Doc, take care, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thank you, Jerry. You too.
Sports 60.